right, so in this tutorial we're going to quickly just talk about connecting graphs and context, and we're just going to go through a couple of examples and kind of get you thinking about how the graph of something can connect to a situation. So we have our first question, which says, what does this graph tell us? And if we look at the axes, we have time in minutes, okay, and then I need some color here. Okay, we have time in minutes right here. And then on the y-axis, we have distance from home. So that would mean that however far, so at this particular point, they are a certain distance from home after a certain amount of time. Okay, so time and distance. Okay, so if I'm looking at this graph, the context of the situation might be that we are, say, a person was at somebody else's house. Okay, they weren't at home when they left, when this started, okay, but they were at somebody else's house or they were somewhere, and then they traveled over the course of time. Notice it doesn't go straight up because time is passing as they move further from their home. So they traveled to some new location. Maybe they went to the store or to another person's house, and then they stopped there and they stayed there for a while. That's why it's flat. They're not moving further from home. They're just staying in place, okay? And then they started to head back towards home. And then for some reason, they turned around. So maybe they forgot something. They needed to go back to their previous location. And then they stayed there again for a little bit. And then they quickly, this is pretty fast, they quickly traveled home. So they moved faster here because it's got a steeper slope than over here. So all those things can be gained from the graph. And as we're looking at graphs, we want to remember that to connect them to a situation so that they have more meaning. Let's look at another graph. So this one we have time in hours, so again time is passing, and then gallons of fuel. Okay, so somebody filled up their tank perhaps, and they had a certain number of gallons, and as they traveled, they used some of that gas up. And you can see there are times when they maybe aren't using as much gas, whether it's because they've stopped or it looks like it's still going down a little bit, so maybe they're on the freeway and you don't use as much fuel when you're driving quickly as when you're driving slowly, you know, stop and go traffic versus regular traffic. So their fuel consumption kind of varies in terms of the rate that they're using it up. Maybe it's running your air conditioning or whatever. And then they get here and it took them a while to fill that tank up. Okay, if we're thinking about this in the context of hours, that's kind of really slow fill up, but that's okay. So they filled their tank back up and now they have a full tank again. So we can get quite a bit of information from looking at graphs and looking at the axes. You may come to problems where you're going to not be given axes and you're trying to match the context with it. In that case, you have to think about what the axes would represent and how that fits with your context. So that's it. That's kind of how we match graphs to context and how we take all that into consideration. So hopefully that helps you moving forward. Have a great day.